is definitely more like discussion based versus, watching a PowerPoint the whole time, because it's really everybody's, everybody's process is going to be a little bit different. I just want to be able to provide people with a sort of breakdown of our process, some different ideas, scripts, whatever it is that's going to help you get into the habit of doing this. And that's really the goal, is to make this a consistent habit. So no worries, Jeff. I know I'm with you, right there with you sometimes. So I guess, obviously, because, your team has been in the business for a while, do you, and not to like call you out, but do you guys have like a pretty consistent process of asking for testimonials?
We do not. Okay. So that's why I'm here.
Okay. Hey, and that's totally fine. Honestly, a lot of people don't. And okay, let's just throw this out there. We live in Minnesota. I feel like it's like that Midwest nice, and like you don't want to, come off too braggy or too like it's hard to ask people to say nice things about you. I get it. I get that. So I mean, at least with loan officers, they have like Tanya, like sometimes I do the communication, sometimes the communication comes from elsewhere, which makes it a little bit easier. But at the same time, for the most part, how a transaction went, who supports you, who had a great experience, et cetera, et cetera. So not asking for that feedback is doing yourself a disservice, because to put it bluntly, people are sometimes too lazy to go do it themselves if they're not prompted. And that's nothing like against them. I'm the same way, like I feel like I'm not one to go take the time to review absolutely everything in my life. But if somebody were to ask me, I would, drop everything in a minute and do that for them. And I think a lot of people are that exact same way. So that's really the group that you kind of want to take advantage of. Not that was said wrong, but you get my point. Like you want to make sure those are the people that you're talking to. So, I mean, why bother with them in the first place? They do make a big difference, especially nowadays where everything is so digital. And especially, I mean, past clients, your sphere, it's a little bit different because they already kind of know you. But for, just the standard person doing a quick Google search for a real estate agent, if your name pops up and Realtor B pops up and Realtor B has 50 5-star reviews and you don't have a single 5-star review, that's kind of an obvious weight there. And so it's not necessarily about the quantity though, it's really about the quality. Like people do read them. I'm one of those people that, especially for a big purchase, I am not going to do it unless I've read reviews, like really thoroughly. Like sometimes I go to multiple sources, whatever it is. So making sure you are getting that real feedback is going to make a positive influence when it comes to people deciding whether or not to use you as a realtor. So that's really the goal here, is making sure you're taking advantage of that. And then, look at COVID. So during COVID, everything was digital. We didn't even have like the in-person capability of talking about like, oh, I use this great person as my realtor. So just emphasizing that digital aspect, that's not going away, making sure we're keeping that in mind. So in terms of like first steps with all this, I would say the first step is deciding where you want to direct people to when it comes to leaving reviews for you. And you do have a bunch of options, which can kind of make it overwhelming. So a couple, just naming a few: Zillow, Facebook, LinkedIn, and then my personal number one is Google. Like I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. In my personal professional opinion, Google is the top place that you should be focusing on for your reviews. Primary reason being, somebody, if they're going to find you organically, they're doing a Google search. It's not to say that the other locations aren't important, especially if you do have a very prominent Facebook presence, a very prominent Zillow presence, whatever it is. But it is something that you kind of have to keep in mind, because once you've decided where you're directing people, You then have to decide how you're going to ask them for that. That's where scripts come in. But what I mean by that is, are you going to attempt to get people to leave you a review in 5 different places, or are you going to funnel them all to one place? And that's a hard one, to be honest. To me, there's no perfect answer for that. And some workarounds, like if you're going to pick one, Google, like that I stick to. But people do look at your Facebook page, people, go on Zillow, whatever it is. So your options there are, next step being writing scripts for your emails. So having an email template ready to go once that transaction is done is going to make your life a whole lot easier. You don't have to sit there thinking about what to type out. You don't have to sit there wondering like what you're going to do next. You have that saved. You know how to do it. And then for both of you, what email systems do you primarily use?
Gmail.
Email system. Oh, go ahead.
Gmail? Okay, so perfect. And then there's no right or wrong answer here because I can show this at the end, but do you both know how to make custom signatures, like custom email templates for various purposes?
I believe so. I think I could pick through and do it. I haven't done it in a little while.
Okay.
You mean signature lines, changing your signature line?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, okay, because what I want to emphasize there, because most people use Gmail. So obviously you have a signature in Gmail. Most people do. If you don't, you should. But you can actually create multiple, which just means that, when you open a new email, you can choose a new signature. And so what I recommend doing in Gmail is creating a testimonial signature. For those of you, like for both of you on the call, I'll send you an article that I found that has a couple different scripts in it. I'm also more than happy to email you my script. It's a little bit different because we're obviously in a different kind of situation, but I'm going to preface by saying it is an article from Zillow. So they're trying to get you to do Zillow reviews, but you can literally swap it out with any platform you want. But I do recommend starting there because having that testimonial template ready to go makes a huge difference. From there, it's deciding, like I said, are you asking them to leave a review in one place, or are you asking them to leave a review in a bunch of places? I've seen it done both ways. I do know one real estate agent who's actually in our office. I'm just going to name drop her, Terry Friedline. If you want to talk to her directly, she has a pretty good template in regards to if you do want to ask for people to leave a review in multiple places. If you're going to do that, what you have to do, and this goes for no matter what platform you're using for asking for reviews, include the link to it, please, because they're not going to do it unless you direct them there, like totally, like one click away, they're there, they can leave that review. The more steps involved, the less likely they are to do it. So in her situation, she even specifies, and there's nothing wrong with us saying, reviews are really important to my business, yada, yada, yada. Would you be willing to also take your review and copy and paste it into these other platforms? And she included, Facebook, LinkedIn, Zillow, her list of different avenues, and had the links right there. You can't miss them. In that situation, you're kind of leaving it up to the person in the hopes that they do that for every single one. But I mean, even if they hit a couple, that's great. The risk you run is, once again, that they might not necessarily do all of them, or that they might not necessarily like leave the review in your top spot. So that's just where, it does become a personal preference. I would say limit it to maybe 3 tops, just because, once again, the more you're asking of somebody, the less likely they are to do it. So I think if you can prioritize a couple that you think are going to be the highest traffic, because I mean, if you're really not interacting with Zillow, you're barely on there, maybe that's not your priority. If you don't even have a Facebook page, well, there's nowhere to direct people to. So another one is LinkedIn that people bring up. The thing I want to state about LinkedIn is I would not make that your top priority, personally speaking. If you do want to ask referral partners, so like me and Tanya, 100% totally fine, but really people are not going to LinkedIn to determine whether you are the best real estate agent. There's definitely benefits to LinkedIn. That's a whole topic for another day. but I don't necessarily think that it is the most important place, especially to direct clients to. So that's just personal opinion. Another thing that you can do, if you've been in the business for a while, is maybe you already have past reviews back from Facebook. Maybe Facebook is what you were prioritizing for a while. And say you want to get those reviews to Google. You cannot just copy and paste them and do them yourself, because that's going to show up under your name and people are going to think you're leaving reviews for yourself. Don't do that. But what you can do is also create a template for those past clients who have already left you a review elsewhere, where you're basically saying, like, it's a reason to check in and say, hey, it was so great working with you last year, 2 months ago, whenever it was, how are things going, whatever it is. Thanks so much for leaving this review for me here. Would you be willing to copy and paste it into Google? Google's super important for, et cetera, et cetera. So that's another option. And at that point, you're pretty much making it as easy as possible. You're taking their exact words, you're putting it into that email. All they have to do is copy and paste it and put it into the new platform that you'd like them to put it in. So that's something else that you can do, especially for those existing reviews. Don't count those out as like never being able to get them and putting them elsewhere. If you use, obviously, KW offers you a website. One thing that is kind of nice is that KW website, don't direct people to submit them there themselves, because you can actually do it on the back end. So if you already have those reviews, you can literally enter them into the back end of the website, or of the testimonial submission form, and you're able to put who submitted it, where it was, etc. So I don't recommend directing people there, only because it's like that one extra step. So if you're going to prioritize something, I would prioritize your Google, your Facebook, where it has to come from that original source, if that makes sense. So just want to take a quick moment. Hi, Maureen, I saw that you joined as well. To see if there are any questions about where to be asking people to submit reviews, or creating email signature templates. Any questions on that kind of thing? Okay, cool. And I'll just say it one more time, Google, in my opinion, top spot, top priority, absolutely. And I should say there as well, you might even be wondering, wait, how do I even get Google reviews? Okay, that, once again, kind of a whole loaded topic for another day, but you have to have a Google My Business set up. You cannot get Google reviews without it. If you haven't done that, or you're not sure, maybe you have set it up and you don't know really how to get the review link or do any of that, please reach out to me. It is probably one of the things I am most passionate about when it comes to marketing yourself. So it's also one of my favorite topics, with that being said. So if that's something you need help with, please let me know. I got you. We'll sit down, we'll chat about it. So we've covered where to direct people to leave those reviews, script, possible where you can get scripts, how you can do that. I will add, like I said, everybody on this call, I will send you the link that has really good script options. You create those templates as signatures in your Gmail account so that you can always have those accessed. And then something else is when it comes to your scripts is adding an element of that personal touch. So yes, you can have, that template of the generic whatever, but if you can add some sort of personal touch, once again, people are going to feel a little bit more inclined to actually do what you're asking, because they feel like you took the time to personally send that to them. So I kind of like the idea of waiting to ask for the review. Maybe let them know at closing, hey, I expect me to reach out to you in regards to review if you're comfortable asking for that. And then maybe waiting a week. And then after that week, you send the testimonial request. You say, how did the move go? Is there anything what's your favorite part about your new house? Or so glad the sale went smoothly. Whatever it is, just kind of make a mental note to yourself, or even just leave a blank space in that email template to add some sort of personal touch. And you can also, in that script as well, ask specific questions that you maybe want them to answer. So what made you choose me as your real estate agent? Or what was the best thing I did to help you buy or sell your home. I can send you guys these questions as well. Just a couple different things that can help, because sometimes it's hard to even necessarily think of a response. Like, you want to say something nice, but you're not necessarily sure exactly what to say. So sometimes if you can give some of those questions to inspire them, it's going to make it a little bit easier for them to write that review. So like I said, I will send those to you as well. So you've decided where people are going to submit. You've created your email templates. You sent them out maybe a day late, maybe a week later, checking in, whatever it is. So once those come in, that's not all you do with them. There's more to it than that. So when you start getting those reviews, I know, once again, being from Minnesota, we try, being a humble culture, something that is very hard is bragging about yourself, or what feels like bragging about yourself. So what I mean by that is taking those positive words, turning it into a social media graphic, sharing it to your social media pages. We do it. We have Testimonial Tuesday. You can go look at Tanya's Instagram, Facebook. You can see those live and in action. And I get that can feel weird. But what I will say to that is some of our highest performing posts are consistently testimonial posts. And a lot of that has to do with, if I had to make an educated guess, it's because the people that are following you on Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is, they're people that want to see you succeed. They're people that support your business. So when they see other people supporting your business, giving you positive feedback, people react really well to that. So don't be afraid of creating graphics that talk about, you don't even have to do anything other than take that quote and throw it in a graphic. And what I recommend with that, a couple different things, is use something like Canva or Command Designs and create templates. It can be one template, or it can be, I think we have like 6 that we rotate through, but that are all kind of like a similar vibe, if you will. Like I said, go look at Tanya's Instagram, her Facebook. You can see what I mean by that. We made hers in Canva, and literally all we do is we swap out the quote. And once those templates are made, like that's the hard part. That's kind of the hump that you have to get over. And you can look up, so in Canva, you can search for like a specific theme or like topic or something. Start with like the social media graphic side, but you can also search for like quote. Don't say testimonial. They're not going to know what you're searching for. But if you look up quote graphics, that you can find quite a few templates that might work for you. Doesn't have to be super complicated. Typically reviews sometimes are kind of long, so you want to keep the background itself a little simpler. But honestly, see what other real estate agents are doing too. Like, look up real estate agent testimonial graphic, and you are going to see a bajillion examples. Don't plagiarize, obviously, but there are tons of free templates out there that once you find a couple that you like I said, that's the hard part. Then you just have to swap out the quote every single time. So, using those. And then here's another thing. So if you're stressed about the fact maybe that you're primarily directing people to Google, but you want people on your Facebook page to see this information, sharing it as a social media graphic, at that point, you are still sharing those positive words. It's maybe just in a different way. And so that does maybe give you a little bit more energy to put towards directing people to something like Google, because you can share those reviews later as a Facebook post, as an Instagram post, etc. And you don't have to do once a week like we do, but you can do it as often or as little as you want. But I'm telling you, people love to see it. They really do. Another social media idea is if maybe, having it in your feed, you don't really like that idea, or maybe you just want to share it to your stories. You can share it to your stories, or you can take the post that you posted to your main Instagram, share it as a story, and then create an Instagram story highlight cover of your reviews, like positive client feedback or reviews or whatever you want to call it. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, Instagram highlight covers, another thing that we can sit down and chat about. But it's a really, really nice thing to just have as one of your highlights on Instagram, because it is something that you should be sharing and should be talking about. So there are different ways that you can go about that. Another thing I recommend doing is, if you should know who the client is or the vendor partner or whoever it is, tag them in your post. Because a lot of the time people are willing to share that. So the only way people can share things, well, it's not the only way, but it's the way they're most likely to see it and do it, is if you tag them in it. So if you're friends with them on Facebook, if you follow them on Instagram, make sure you're tagging them in those posts. They're going to get notified about it. They're more likely to share it. That just boosts your presence because it's going to be pushed out further and further. So one last idea in regards to kind of how to create it, or creating marketing materials with these reviews, is if you have maybe turning it into a video or like a video series. You could do either just like a series of like just the words, and then maybe having like music in the background, uploading it to YouTube. If you have a client who's comfortable on video, take a video of them, get a video testimonial, maybe ask them questions, make it an interview style, or if they have like a really unique story behind why they chose a certain house or why they're selling their current house or something like that, and then tying it into why they worked with you, the best part about working with you, that's going to be amazing. Because I mean, you're basically combining two super popular forms of social media, the video, the testimonial, meshing them together and creating like a super post. So those are some other ideas to just kind of get, think outside the box a little bit for marketing those. But gonna pause again. Any questions on what you can do with those testimonials once you've gotten them? Or any ideas that you are particularly like, okay, I'm gonna do that?
So I have a question, Mary. So if you got your clients to do a video, do they have to sign some form of waiver or something like that before doing a video for you?
I would recommend it, just because I think it's covering, your own skin a little bit. If you want an example of what that looks like, because we, like whenever our videographer films Field Marine, you've actually signed it.
I'm a waiver.
Yep. So I can send you an example waiver, and then you can obviously just swap out whatever information you need to swap out. If somebody's willing to be on video, they're going to be willing to sign the waiver, but that is a super important point that, especially if you're uploading things to YouTube or your social media pages,
Right.
and they have a person in them, you gotta make sure you have permission. It's just safety first. So I'm glad you brought that up. But yes, I would recommend doing that just as a precaution.
Okay. My other question was, so I don't have Google Business set up. I need help with that. But if I've seen social media posts that my clients actually put up themselves, where they said something about me, am I allowed to copy and paste their statement that they've already said on social media, put it on a Canva quote, and put it out there? Or do you have to ask permission to use that?
Personally, I say go for it, because it's out there. Like that stuff's out there. I would say for that, yes, absolutely putting it into a graphic, especially because like they're sharing that information for a reason. They're probably tagging you in it, or it's on your page, or it's associated with you somehow. So in that situation, I think it's fine. Jim Camarada, if he ever watches this, please confirm. But I think you should be good there. The one thing I'll say, I don't know if you were on the call for this, Maureen, but you can't do that with Google, because it's going to show up as you submitting that review, and that would be super embarrassing. So, but what you can do with that is, for those people that left the review on Facebook, what I also recommend you do is copy that verbiage, put it into an email, send it to them, and say, hey, miss working with you. How are things going? Whatever it is. You had written this statement on Facebook. I so appreciate it. Would you actually be willing to copy and paste it into Google as well? Google reviews are super important to my business, something like that.
Okay.
So it's a way of taking those past reviews and directly going to that person, and even having them kind of like re-acknowledge it and then submit it elsewhere too.
Okay.
Yep.
For For the
Yeah.
highlight reels, does that have to be previously created content, or can you create content that goes directly into that? Like, do you have to do 5 or 6 posts of something to put it into a highlight reel first, or can you create all that and just dump it in there? I don't want to say behind the scenes, but
Yeah, that is a great question. And sadly, the answer is it has to be like previously posted. So, I mean, we've done it before. Like we did like a Meet the Team series on Tanya's Facebook, and we just posted them on her stories like back to back to back to back, and then quick made like a highlight reel with them. So there is that. But however, you can take like so like say you post something on your Instagram, you can share a regular post to your stories. So you could do one like if you didn't want to post them all to your stories right away, because it has to be in a story. You can't take something in your regular feed and put it into a highlight reel at all. Like it has to be pre-created, and then it has to be an Instagram story to be able to add it to the highlights. So you could space them out a little bit if you want, but it's just a personal preference there. I don't think people are going to think negatively of you if you do that. But yeah, unfortunately there is, wouldn't that be nice though? But yeah, there's no workaround there. It has to be a story before it can be a highlight. So there's that. But I definitely still do recommend it. And once again, it just adds a lot of this ties into branding as well. Like you can create those social media graphic templates that align with your branding, and it just same thing with your highlight covers and adding all that. It's just a really great way to tie all that together too. So that's kind of nice. Another thing I wanted to mention is texting for testimonials. So text requests, and I think this just goes along with the idea of like, I think it's a lot harder for people to ignore a text message than it is for them to ignore an email. And something I'll state about Google specifically is from their app, or the Google My Business app, I should say. You can actually send a text form, like a text review form, directly from the app. And so that's a really, really easy way of doing that. And so, I mean, and somebody else has asked me too, like, hey, I sent somebody an email and they didn't respond. Like, is it terrible if I text them asking to? Heck no, do it. Sometimes people are just like, they get busy or they totally forget or, whatever it is. So, I mean, obviously don't do it within like a 24-hour period, like give people a little bit of leeway. But, you can send the nicest text message just saying, hey, not sure if you saw my email or not, yada, yada, yada. So texting, if you're not getting email responses, is a good option as well. Okay, those are kind of like some of the main points I wanted to talk about. Anybody on this call, is there anything like that we've talked about that you maybe want to see a visual of, or have like a walkthrough, or any other questions that you have about it?
You said, I think, when to do it. You recommend like a week after closing. Is that kind of what you recommended? I didn't even dive into that too much, but just want to clarify.
So I don't think there's like necessarily a perfect time to do it. The reason I like, the idea of waiting a week is that, like closing day, there's a lot going on. Like usually people are like closing, all right, now I get to go to my house and I get to unpack and I get to do whatever it is. There's a lot going on. I think a week later, the benefit of doing that is things have probably slowed down for them a little bit. And it gives you that reason of checking in with them after it happened and, getting to be like, hey, how would everything go? What's the first project you're going to do? Whatever it is. So I think you can maybe give them the heads up that you're going to be asking at some point, because then they know to keep an eye out for it and you're putting that idea in their head. But then, that little bit of delay kind of just, I personally, that's what we kind of do. And we have a system. So I'll say as well, like, if you've ever worked with us, you've gotten an email from Social Survey, which is like a syndicate site. There are syndicates that you can sign up for where basically like people submit their review in one place and it gets pushed out to other places. They're all going to cost money. So that's the caveat there. I don't think it's nice. I mean, it's obviously we love it, but at the same time, I'm frugal. So I'm like, don't necessarily spend your money on that when you can share things organically yourself. But those I think end up going out about a week later, and that seems to be like a good time period. So
I mean, something like that would make sense, like get up to speed. Like if you haven't been doing it or they're all in one, instead of cycling through them all or trying to get them to do multiples, just do
Right.
that for a little while, get up to speed, and then.
However, what I'll say with that too is that I think the personalization does make such a big difference of like, because obviously people know that's not Tanya emailing them directly. And I do think, you know, like when we'll reach out to them if they've left a review there, because those sadly don't go directly to Google. So that's why I reach out and I'm like, hey, you know, checking in, whatever it is. And then, you know, we see people, we get direct responses from people to that because I think they appreciate the personal touch. So that's just the one like downfall of that is it is very automated looking. And I do think that the personal aspect does make an impact. But yeah, so I mean, overall, like super dumbed down summary of the process is, like I said, so deciding where you're going to direct people. I'll say it once and I'll say it a million times. Google's my number one, but you can request more than one place. Just please include the links to all of them. And if they've left a review in the past, have that content copy and pasted in that email. All they have to do is copy and paste it. It just makes life super simple. Having those email templates, having an email template for clients who have left reviews elsewhere and you need them to like direct them to Google or something, and then having it for your post close. Maybe you even change it up based on whether it's a buyer or seller. I don't know how specific you want to get, but for the most part, I recommend keeping it short and sweet, you know, because once again, the longer an email, the less people are likely to like thoroughly read it. But adding that personal touch. And then once those reviews come in, if you need to, like if you're not getting the responses you need to via email, texting them, once you see it, once it's wherever it needs to be, if you need to add it to your KW website, you can do that manually yourself. And then you can also take that content and put it into your testimonial social media templates and then post those out. I like making a bunch at one time because then it's just going to make your life easier. So you're not like every single week being like, oh, I need to make a new testimonial graphic. Obviously, Tanya's been in the business for a long time, so that makes a difference there. But if you have a bunch, just whip them all out. You don't have to post them all right away. You can schedule them out as long as you want. But just having those templates is going to make your life really easy. Any other questions?
So Mary, when they go to Google, is it just, you know, give you a rating between 1 and 5 stars and then just write whatever you want? Or are we supposed to be directing our clients and kind of steering them as to what we want them, like what questions they should answer? I didn't know if it's like just very open.
Nope, you're good. So because you're on the call, I'm going to send it to all 3 of you, but I do think sometimes adding a little bit of inspiration, like having questions in there does help people because it can be hard. So, you know, saying, especially if it's somebody that maybe found you like that you don't already know and they found you online, saying what made you choose me as your realtor, or what was the most helpful thing that I did, or like I'm trying to think of a way to word it that doesn't sound so weird. But I will be sending you a list of like possible questions that you can ask people, or you can just leave it up to them, or you can give like maybe reminders about the transaction or something, you know, like something to kind of jog their memory a little bit. But that's why I think, you know, like a 1 week point is great for, you know, clients moving forward. And then for maybe clients you worked with a while back, I think jogging their memory or asking, I don't like saying leading questions, but just asking questions that can maybe inspire them a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it just depends I would say that's more important, especially for transactions that happened a while ago.
Okay.
So you'll get examples though.
Okay, thanks.
And then I also think, I kind of said this already, but I think giving people a heads up ahead of time that it is something that's important to your business and you will be asking them for a review, whether you want to do that, I mean, way at the beginning of a transaction or on closing day. The benefit of doing it on closing day is it's a little bit more like fresh in their mind, and then you can also kind of gauge at that point how the transaction went, because you're probably like, not that this ever happens to you guys, but you know, if a transaction just kind of whatever, you might not ask them for a review. So, you know, it's just a personal preference. I'm not going to say whether it's bad or good, but anyway, you know, so like if you kind of wait until closing, fresh in their mind, you can kind of gauge how everything went. That's just my personal suggestion. Cool. Oh, and should say too, another reason I emphasize Google and have talked about it like over and over again is having more Google reviews is also going to help with your search engine optimization, because Google is looking at you as a relevant business. So then, you know, if you have a website associated with it, if you have other, you know, things associated with your Google My Business, it's called a listing, which is kind of confusing. That's only benefiting you. So that's one of the reasons too that I'm just like super passionate about Google and helping boost your organic search engine optimization, I think is a huge benefit.
So we can reach out to you, Mary, about setting up Google My Business.
Yes.
And then you're going to send us some samples, examples, testimonials. And then could you also send the link to the recording of this?
I will have to ask the office staff for that, but yes, I will
Okay.
make sure that we have a link so that this can be rewatched later.
Great.
Yes. It's definitely, this topic, I think there's, you know, a lot of kind of factors that you have to set up on the front end, but once you have that process in place, it's so valuable. So it's one of the things that I definitely think can maybe be forgotten sometimes, but does make a very positive impact on your business. Short and sweet today. I didn't even take up a full hour. Nice. It's very unlike me. Okay, well, you three on the call, you can expect an email. Anybody watching later knows you can reach out to me, and then we'll get a recording of this uploaded to the office YouTube page, be able to watch it later. And then if anybody has questions or wants to go over, you know, the Instagram highlights or the Google My Business, please reach out to me.
Thank you so
Great.
much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mary.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.